welcome back to the Let's Talk podcast with me and David, aka Shamrock Balls, and today we're going to be talking about one of both of our favorite films, 1979's Alien, directed by Ridley Scott. And David, I think this is again another one of those films that are pretty high on your all-time list, right?
Yeah, we just seem to be hitting all the all-time greats on my list. Yeah, it is. Alien is one of those movies that, for me, the older I get, the more I watch it, the more I really like it.
So yeah, Alien, yeah, I get it's one of the most important films of all time. I mean, it put Ridley Scott on the map. I think he directed one other movie before this, but once Alien came out, that was it. Ridley Scott was a made man, and I love Ridley Scott. I really do. I think those two best movies were back-to-back, Alien and Blade Runner, and then he makes some classics in there, but I actually think that his brother, Tony Scott, is probably one of my all-time favorite directors.
I like Ridley's vision, for this movie. I'm not a big fan of Blade Runner.
No?
I like the movie. No, I just don't like it. I don't know why. I've seen it a couple of times, and I just found it. I actually watched it again. I think it was last year, the year before. I hadn't seen it in years, and I thought I'm going to give this a go because it's a renowned classic. And I just was bored watching it. I understand the impact that Blade Runner had from a visual point of view that it had on movies in the 80s and stuff like that, about how they portrayed the future and, dystopian future and all that. But as a movie, it just didn't do anything for me. But, I mean, Ridley Scott, I don't know if I would put Ridley Scott for me as one of my favorite directors. I think, he made Alien, and as you said, put him on the map. And I think that, as for movie making being an art form, I think without his vision, we wouldn't have got the movie that we got.
Yes, that's the key, I think, with Ridley Scott. And I've heard some other people bring this up, and I think it's very true. And I've brought it up comparing him to Tim Burton is Ridley Scott is at the mercy of whatever screenplay he gets, because he knows how to direct, he knows how to create worlds, he knows how to execute his vision, but the idea doesn't necessarily come from him. Which is honestly one thing that I can relate to, because I've never been a big idea guy, but if someone puts an idea in my brain, I can envision it. And I think that's one thing with Tim Burton and Ridley Scott, is if you give them a great script, they'll probably end up with a great movie.
And it's funny you should say it, because look, I rewatched Alien last weekend. I watched the making of over the last couple of nights, because it's, I don't know, it must be on for like near 3 hours, and that's one of the things. I haven't watched that making of in a while, but that is one of the things that Ridley Scott said. As soon as he read the script, he was in. He didn't have to think about it. So to me, that's a guy. I know visionary, an auteur. It's true about all the time, but he must have had a vision. One of the things that struck me about him was that he said yes straight away to the movie. He also said that he didn't like sci-fi and he didn't like creature movies, but he thought he could make a really good movie out of the script that he had received. And he also then went off to London for a load of weeks and storyboarded the whole movie from start to finish, so he could bring it back to Hollywood or the producers or whatever, or Fox, and just say, look, this is the way the movie's going to look. And he said that originally, I think it was budgeted at something like $4 million, and when they seen his storyboards and the vision, the budget then doubled. So that just shows you the amount of kind of faith they must have had in Ridley Scott's vision at that particular stage. But as they went on actually making the movie, you'd watched the making of yourself, John, that talked about the room with the space jockey, that the studio really didn't want to fund that set, and it was Ridley Scott actually had to go and say to them, look, we really need this in the movie. But he was mentioned in the making of it, he was heavily influenced by Space Odyssey 2001, and you can really see that. You can see that was what he was kind of going for.
Yes, I completely agree. And the thing is, and there's some big key differences that I think that he nails more than 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I could definitely see that's what he was going for. And it's funny because I'm drawing a blank on what the writer's name is. Do you know it off the top of your head?
Don O'Bannon?
Don O'Bannon, yeah. Bonham. He also wrote Dark Star with John Carpenter. So, he worked on a space movie, and that's how he got the itch to do this. He wanted to make a proper one, because that one's more, it's kind of a student film, Dark Star. It's a comedic movie. It was literally a volleyball with, they put legs on it and stuff. So it's completely different from Alien, but you can see the bones of the person who would eventually write Alien in there. He's like, I wanted to make a serious one, and the writing for this movie is fantastic. The screenplay in general has so many different elements to it, but then combining it with, like you're saying, those sets. And that's why I'm surprised when you said you didn't like Blade Runner, because one of the things that draws me to Blade Runner is he created that world, and I feel like the design of it is similar to Alien. They feel very lived in and very realistic.
What you were saying about Dan O'Bannon, and look, I haven't seen Dark Star, and I always hear about it being talked about, especially with John Carpenter too, because he had a lot to do with that Dark Star, and people who are John Carpenter fans would mention it, before he went on to make the likes of Halloween and things like that. But I thought it was funny that Dan O'Bannon said that instead of Dark Star becoming, it's kind of snowballed, and he says instead of it becoming the best student film ever made, it became one of the poorest proper films or professional films ever made. I thought it was funny that he said that.
It's bad. I love John Carpenter. He's one of my favorite directors of all time. I pretty much like all of his work, but that's a bad movie. But it's a student film, so you kind of forgive it. So that's the thing. But you could see the bones of the writer, and you could see the bones of John Carpenter in there, but it's not clicking yet.
Yeah, but you were saying about like story and stuff like that, and even the making of at the end, Ridley Scott said, and it made me wonder when this making of came out. It must be maybe 20 years ago, because he says that he hadn't done any other sci-fi films since Alien, because he feels as if that unless he gets a good story, he would do one again. Which we all know he's went down the road of, I think he done The Martian, didn't he? And then he done Prometheus, and then the follow-up, Alien Covenant.
Yeah, and only 1.5 of those movies are good, so he's kind of
yeah, but this yeah, I mean, I didn't particularly like The Martian, and that didn't like them Alien films either that he made after that. But the thing about the story in this, I actually find that the story to me is very straightforward. I don't particularly think it's an out of the box or revolutionary story. That's what I think. I don't. I mean, to talk about Alien being a great story, I don't really think it is a great story. I think what makes Alien great is the filmmaking aspect of it and the performances. And to go back to what you were saying, which is what I wanted to get to by saying that, you talk about Blade Runner and Alien. It's the world that was created. It's the claustrophobia in that spaceship, and it's the characters that I think that actually make this film.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's why when I say it's a great story, I think that there's a little bit more to it, because I've heard this film described as, like, I think even me and you have kidded around about, like, Michael Myers in space, or, like, it feels like something hunting, it's a creature feature, there's one alien up there, claustrophobic space, they can't escape it, you're in space, no one's coming to save you, so it's just you and him. But the thing is that there's more layers to it, in the sense that they all work for a corporation. They're just blue-collar workers living on this ship. This is their job. Mm-hmm. That's why I really appreciate, like, some of my favorite scenes are with Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto, when they're just, like, talking about how much of their share, how they're only getting a half share and everybody else is getting a full share.
I think we ought to discuss the bonus situation.
Right.
Brett and I, we think we deserve full shares, right, baby?
But yet, like, I mean, I'm a blue-collar worker myself, and I kind of understand and relate to that. And, like, we're the ones, like, this ship ain't moving without us doing this work, so why don't we get a full share like you guys? Like, that would piss me off, too. And they look like Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto, like, the way they're dressed. They look like they're worn out, like rough guys.
Yeah, and I think that's the relatable aspect of the movie. For example, I believe that Tom Skerritt says himself that, or was it Harry Dean Stanton? It was Harry Dean Stanton actually said in the making of that when he met with Ridley Scott had actually written backgrounds for all the characters, and he gave it to them so they could actually, knew where their characters came from and their whole histories and things like that. And yes, they are kind of normal, down to earth guys trying to do a job, and then they find themselves caught up in this situation. But what you were saying there as well about it's been described over the years as, say, a haunted house film. You know what I mean? Or like you had mentioned before, Halloween in space, or what I heard it was described as, what it was brought in the Fox, was Jaws in space. So that's what I mean when I say I don't think it's a revolutionary story about a group of people stuck in one place, and something's taking them out one by one, and then they have to essentially they have to try and get it before it gets them, and then in the end the only way from get away from this monster is to just get out of there. You know what I mean? And I think we've seen that template kind of used over and over again the years of filmmaking. Halloween done it in 78, Alien done it in 79. The Terminator as well is also a variation on that theme. You know, and we've seen it through all the slasher movies throughout the 80s. It just so happens that this movie takes place in space. And to be honest with you, it could have took place anywhere else. It could have took place, as we said, in a haunted house. Could have took place in a submarine. Could have took place on an airplane. We seen it again. I have to bring it up a few years earlier. We seen it in Jaws, where the guys were getting haunted on the boat a few years earlier. So that's all I'm saying, is that's what I'm saying about it. I'm not taking anything away from it. You know, it's just kind of like, to be that type of familiarity of something's haunting these people and they have to try and survive. We've seen it again and again and again. So I think what sets Alien aside from that is the amazing filmmaking from Ridley Scott, the amazing sets, and the characters. Okay, the characterizations, if you wanna put it like that, because a lot of people, I don't know if they know, was that characters were described as unisex. They weren't supposedly all males, or it wasn't supposedly 5 males and 2 females. It was, they were interchangeable. So the characters were actually written unisex. So none of them had like female characteristics or male characteristics. When they were casting the movie, it was a case of, well, which one of these, any of these characters can be female, doesn't matter, you know. And it just so happened that they picked Ripley to be female. And at first, it was kind of like, oh, the one that's going to win in the end, you know, the one that's going to survive is a female, because that had never really been done before.
It's actually a final girl, though, when you think about it, if you go by slasher logic.
And the thing is, too, John, but you got to remember as well, this is 1978, right? They're making this movie in 1978. It might have even been 1977 when they started. So Halloween hadn't even come out yet. But funny enough, in the making of, they talked about what actually inspired Ridley Scott was the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah,
so he loved
that.
Yeah, so he was kind of like I said earlier, he said that he didn't like monster movies and he didn't like sci-fi movies. So he's seen it as like maybe the Texas Chainsaw Massacre taking place inside this enclosed place, this spaceship.
Which, honestly, when you think about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like, yeah, it's not in space, but the house where they live, those damn cannibals, it's in the middle of nowhere. Like, you can't really get away.
Yeah.
She got very lucky at the very end in that movie, but yeah, I could see that, like, Leatherface being in the sense of them taking place the alien, you know, hunting them down one by one. It's scary as hell, and that's why it works so well in this movie to have them being hunted by the one alien, which is, you know, just juxtaposed with what happens with Aliens. It's such a huge difference, because like this movie it's just one alien, and Ridley Scott purposely hides the alien for most of the film. We don't really even see her. She's just hunting like the whole time. Like you see her in shadows, and that's it. And it's perfectly. I mean, one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when Harry Dean stands down in that one floor with all the chains everywhere, and he's getting the liquid on his face. It's just amazing set design and just amazing tension there.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, where's that water coming from if they're inside a spaceship?
I mean, where
I don't understand that
from?
I know what are the chains all about. It's like some kind of sex dungeon.
Well, they do say this movie is like an allegory for sex, so you know, some people are into that. You know, like they're into being chains and stuff.
Yeah, and I think you see the alien hanging up on the chain before he jumps down.
Yeah, so, you know, like, it makes sense in that, I guess, in that aspect. Because I was thinking the same thing. Where is the water coming from? What's its purpose? Like, that looks like, like something on a spaceship. I just don't believe
it looks like he's walked into some old warehouse with no roof.
Yeah, like, I know that these worlds are supposed to be lived in, but that looks ridiculous.
Yeah, it's always one of those things all about is go, where's that rain coming from? But again, look, that's what I'm saying as well. That to me, that's not being picked off like that one by one, or sorry, keeping the creature in the shadows and not seeing it and only seeing wee glimpses of it. I mean, that had been done before Alien as well. Do you know what I mean? And I sound like I'm being negative here about this and shit. I'm not. I'm just saying that, yes, that's what makes it great. And watching this again the other night, I actually remember thinking about, there's an awful lot of smoke in this movie. There's an awful lot of steam. It's coming from everywhere. And then when I was watching the making of, a couple of the actors said, yeah, when I was making that movie, all I remember is steam and smoke. And it just turns out that was because that Ridley Scott needed to create an atmosphere. And part of that was to keep some of the props hidden. You know, if you seen it in full light, it would look fake. Do you know what I mean? And that's just the movie making technique. But that does create a kind of grimy atmosphere for this film.
Yeah, it does feel very dirty, this movie. And that's one thing, and, you know, just to comment on some of the scenes, when we open this movie, I love the opening. I just love how atmospheric it is, and like the lights slowly turning on the ship, the computer room lighting up very slowly to them getting out of their pods, which that feels very 2001-ish, mainly because the way the camera's moving around, seeing the ship, it's not rushing, even though like the movie's not very long, but it's not, you know, it's not rushing to introduce these characters. Like, we don't get like a big moment like they in, you know, eventually in the 80s and definitely in the 90s. We would have some big scene with the alien to open it up, and then we would slow it down until we pick up again. But no, this movie is slowly escalating until we eventually get to the end. It's just one big, it's just on a straight line up. We started out the slowest way possible, and we just build and build and build. And like, even like the character development, I guess it's not the greatest in the first like third of this movie. Like, we get that scene, like I was saying, with Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton when they're first eating, talking about the shares. But, you know, other than that, like, Ripley becomes the star of this film, but for the first half, she's in the background.
Yeah, and look, that's what I actually love about it. You're talking about the way it opens up and the way the camera just pans in, and it's a very kind of mellow and very kind of slow, kind of hypnotic kind of beginning. I love that, the way the camera moves across, and then you see the titles slowly come up, and you don't know what it is at first. Names come up at the bottom, who's starring in the movie. And as you say, when the pods and stuff open, it's just very quiet, and just there's nothing to kind of make you on edge or anything. And that's what I really like about that. And as you say, as the characters are introduced, you know, it's more of like Yaphet Kotto and Harry Dean Stanton are loud and talking, and you're watching what they're saying, and then you have the likes of Tom Skerritt, who's the captain, just trying to quell, you know, their qualms, and yet she's kind of just in the background there, and I think at this stage it kind of draws you into a false sense of security of, you know, she's the last person that you would think is going to survive what's coming their way.
Yeah, and you know what's crazy about that? I mean, I wasn't around then, but this is really what put Sigourney Weaver on the map. So I imagine when you went and saw this in theaters, you probably recognized more than likely Harry Dean Stanton and Yaphet Kotto, because this is after, I think, the James Bond film he did. And I don't know what Tom Skerritt was in before this, but I assume he was more recognizable as well. Well, everybody else, John Hurt was probably recognizable, but I imagine that Sigourney Weaver, many people probably were like, I don't even recognize her. So you wouldn't expect her to become like this great actress now.
Yeah, exactly. And to talk about that on the making of that this was her first movie, they felt as if she was very kind of, they said that she wasn't sure if she was given enough. She was very unsure of herself. That may have added to her performance, to the point where that Ridley Scott Ridley Scott also said he felt as if too he wasn't getting enough from the actors when they were in some of the scenes, and he actually grabbed her and told her that I don't need to give you inspiration to pick up a fucking teacup. Yeah, she burst into tears and run off. So, and he had to run after her and say to her, look, sorry, I didn't mean to say it to you. I wanted to say it to John Hurt, but I just couldn't say it to him, so I said it to you. And that wasn't the first time she burst into tears. The scene where Lambert slaps her because she's like 5'11" or something. She's really tall. She's 5'10", 5'11", and remember, she doesn't let them in, and then Ash lets them in, and she comes down and says, you know, what the fuck's going on? And Lambert is meant to slap her, but apparently Sigourney Weaver kept moving out of the way, so she kept missing. And Ridley Scott said to Lambert, or the girl who played Lambert, Veronica Cartwright, says, give her it really good. But she says she actually moved out of the way. She missed her again. She moved out of the way, but she threw her hand back again and caught her with the back of her hand. Sigourney Weaver burst into tears again, and apparently she said that she was more upset that she started crying because Ripley wouldn't cry.
Again, cowgirls don't cry.
So she seemed, I think a lot of them found it difficult being in that enclosed area. Like when Ridley Scott was saying about he felt as if he wasn't getting enough from the cast, I wonder, was it just to do with being enclosed in that set? You know what I mean? All day long. Could you imagine like being enclosed in that set with those lights on all day?
That's crazy how they designed that. They designed it floor by floor like that. And that incredible. And yeah, you would actually start to lose your mind, I assume, it a little bit because they're so realistic. But then again, like you were just saying, like does that help the performances? Because we've talked about on this show many a times is that having realistic sets to work against has an effect on the actors. It's much more noticeable that
100%.
when they can use real environments around them compared to a CGI environment. If you're acting
Yep.
with the real thing and you feel really uncomfortable, I would feel uncomfortable in a ship like that. It's very dimly lit.
Yeah.
There's only like a couple areas that have any lights, but still, like, there's nothing in there that feels like warm and comforting.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this as well, because when you see the behind the scenes of this, of the actual spaceship that they built at Shepperton Studios in England, they basically built the whole interior of that spaceship. And that's what they say. This is, there was like one way in and one way out, or maybe a couple of ways. I'm not sure. I can't remember now. But what they said. But no. But the thing was, once you were in, it wasn't like you could just step off the stage. You know, you had to go down the corridors. It was explained that they did have a cockpit, and they did have like the sleeping area, and they did have the canteen, and all these corridors and stuff. So once you were inside the actual set of the spaceship, you couldn't just climb out a hatch or as I said earlier, or just step out. You had to work your way around and go out the door. And I think all of that added to the performances. You do sit there about them being grimy and being dirty, and I think you're sitting there and you're sweating and you're doing take after take. And they actually said as well that Jaffa Kodo wasn't impressed by Sigourney Weaver at all. And there was a lot of friction between the two of them as well. And that kind of ended up showing on the screen, which helped their characters as well, which is brilliant. Because I love when earlier on in the movie, because they want their bonus resolved, and she goes down to speak to them about fixing the ship. And they're going, what? And then she says, fuck off. And they're like, what? And then she says, I'll be on the bridge. And then she leaves, and they just switch it off. You know, they're just doing that just to annoy her. But later on, when she becomes captain and she's asserting herself, and that's when she says, are you listening to me, Parker? I love that, you know, when she's being assertive like that with him, and he's like, well, let's hear it.
Oh yeah, when he gets mad, that's what I mean. He gives a great performance in this himself. Like, and then later in the movie, like when it's just the three of them left, you know, you feel the fear in him. He's like, can we get out of here? Like I'm not asking. Like, we got to get out of here. Like, he's getting all tense ready when when it's about time. He's like, I think we got like 10 minutes. But like earlier, like he's kind of being assertive. Like it's weird that once Dallas is gone, Ridley is second command. Like, they have to start turning to her regardless. But you're right, they don't really respect her earlier in the movie.
No, they totally don't, and she has to kind of like earn that respect. And I think, and to be honest with you, do they ever really respect her? Because when she does be a wee bit more assertive with Parker, I'll try to remember the character names. We'll get mixed up between characters and actors. When she is assertive with Parker, and Parker starts doing what she says, it's more of a band of brothers. Excuse the term, because I know it's two girls, but it was more of a band of brothers that happened, because what happened is they found out Ash has double-crossed them all. You know, he's a robot. I love that as well. Nobody knocks his head off and he goes, Ash was a goddamn robot. Nobody knows.
God. I was waiting to talk, because that's actually an aspect of this movie that I wanted to talk about, because that's something that's clever, is the AI aspect. I mean, again, how surprising was that it turned out that there's an AI robot on the ship the entire time, and then Dallas has to like tell Ridley, like, oh, they told me that they're swapping out our usual guy for him just a couple days before. Seemed fine. You don't expect that though at all.
Yeah, because the whole thing is that, as I was going to say first about the band of brothers thing, because it's more when they find out that he's double-crossed them, and they've been sent, or she found out that they were expendable, and they found out that basically the company sent them, because if you remember before, the plan, Parker says, why don't we just get on the shuttle and blow this whole damn thing? Or it might have been Lambert, I can't remember which one it was. And Ripley's thinking was, well, there's not enough. There's 4 of us left. There's not enough of us to get in the spaceship. So what we'll do is we'll stick with Dallas's plan, and we'll blow it out the goddamn airlock, right? And even then they're like, you know, is that going to work? You know what I mean? And she's like, well, we're sticking to the plan. She's still going with the Dallas's plan. So everything changes when they find out that Ash is a robot. Her kind of attitude is, to hell with the company, to hell with the alien, to hell with the spaceship. We're going to take our chances. Do you know what I mean? So it's not even so much that they're respecting her now, or she's respecting them. It's just more about survival. you know. But what you were saying there, in my opinion, about finding out about Ice being the robot, it's one of those things. The first time you watch it, when you find out Mother, you know, when she goes in and finds out why they're actually there, and it says about they're expendable. I mean, that's one twist, and you go, oh, they're expendable. But then for it to find out that he is in on it and that he is actually a robot, I mean, that's just mind blowing. You know, you're going, whoa, where's this going now? What's happening? You know, you almost forget about the alien for 5 or 10 minutes.
Oh yeah, but that could, you know, obviously, especially in 2024, talking about artificial intelligence, like that storyline is fascinating about that. And you know, again, tying back into the blue collar worker thing, they're run by a corporation. Of course, they're expendable. That's the least surprising thing in the world. So, of course, they would have. And then you know, if they're gonna put a company guy on there, he's a robot, so he dies. Who the hell cares? They don't care about him either. But he is forced to follow protocol, his own set of protocol, because he's the reason for the whole thing happening. You know, he lets them back on. Ridley was content. She's like, no, these are the rules. They have to stay out. Like, that's it. Like, she makes the tough decision for them right away, even though everybody else is telling her she's wrong. But she stands up to him and says, this is protocol. This is what we're supposed to do. And Ash is the one who hits that button. It's like, you know what? If he wouldn't have been selfish for the company, you know, we would have lost people, but it would have been better than the outcome.
Yeah, and the thing is as well, John, about one of the things about like what I was saying about in recent years has become one of my favorite films is because like on a rewatch you can see how slimy he is being, even though he's a robot, he's being programmed to do it. All the decisions, all the looks, all the things that he does to kind of like double cross them. Like he knows fine rightly. I mean, obviously he's part of it. Why they're woken up and have to go to this planet. You know, but he's playing along the whole time. And Ian Holm doesn't play it stupid as if, oh, I don't know. You watch his performance, it's very subtle because he does know. And even to the point where he lets them in, and when Ripley goes down and questions him, how defiant he is. And then not only that, when the alien bursts out of John Hurt, Yaphet Kotto lifts the fork. And he's like, oh, don't do that. He's protecting it as well.
That scene is amazing as well, like, which is crazy. That's one of the most fascinating scenes in film history with the chest burster. Apparently, they were told that it was going to come out, but they weren't expecting that much blood and squibs. But what's her name in the background? Does it always draw your ear when you hear, oh my God?
Oh God!
Like that one.
Yeah. Lambert, Veronica Cartwright. Well, you know, the funny thing was that all the myth has been built up over the years that said that they didn't know the blood was gonna come out like that, and like I always thought, well, how would they not know? Because they would have had to set all that up, and apparently, like we exactly watching the making of again, it was like yes, they did know it was gonna happen, but what they didn't know was that there was gonna be a squib in there, and that it was gonna explode like that. And what had happened was that the T-shirt that he was wearing, you know, with the prosthetics, you know, they put acid on it and then kind of scored with a sharp knife. So when the prop, it's easier for the prop alien's head to burst through the material, but it still wasn't bursting through. So the blood started to seep through. Ridley Scott yelled, cut. He says, right, okay. I can't remember if they put more acid or something on it, but he was like, right, we'll go again this time. Just push harder with the alien. But this time, gather round. And when they gathered round, that's what happened. The squib went off and it came through and the blood went all over her and hit her in the face and startled her. And in the outtake, she actually slipped and fell on her back with her legs up in the air.
I mean, I guess that's to get the reaction you want out of your actors because they all do look freaked out by it, and that makes sense.
Your woman, that Veronica Cartwright, just, you know, listening to her, obviously she's proud to be in this movie, and she was kind of an established actress up until that point. She was in Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
Yes.
And she was a child actress in The Birds as well. Yeah, it's a very good film, Alfred Hitchcock film. And she thought she had the part of Ripley.
Sorry, that would not work. I like her, but there are times listening to her deliver lines, and I'm like, she was probably my least favorite of any of the performances in the film, to be honest. She feels like the most, you know, to quote the company, the most expendable.
Yeah, and she actually turned up in England and went to get fitted and was like, oh, I'm Ripley. And they went, no, you're not. No, her costume. She went to get her costume on. They went, right, what character are you playing? And she was like, Ripley. And they were like, no, you're not. She was like, I am. And they went, well, no, you're Lambert. And then she was like, hold on a wee second. Went back to her hotel and phoned her agent and says, what part did I get? And the agent went, Ripley. And she went, well, they're telling me I got Lambert. So no wonder she's that kind of performance she put in. Not that it was to me that it was a bad performance. Yeah, it was a different type of character. She was told that you're kind of seeing it through the audience's eyes, so you've got to be terrified all the time. So maybe she took pleasure in slapping Sigourney Weaver in the face.
Maybe that's why she tried to go back for it the second time and actually hit her as hard as she could, because that's probably what made her cry, was getting hit again, not expecting it.
Though they are lucky that Yaphet Kotto stepped in, because I tell you what, Sigourney Weaver was about to get stuck in there. I would back Sigourney in that one.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's messed up, but I guess that's a different directing style. But a lot of directors would do that, and Ridley Scott's kind of known for being a little bit of a hard ass, but like not telling his actors what he's gonna do and keeping them in the dark, which is good to get a reaction, but sometimes that could be a little bit messed up.
Yeah, listen, different time. I mean, when you think about the movies that come out in the 70s and what some of these maverick directors were doing, I mean, we talked about what he called William Friedkin, what he put people through in The Exorcist just to get believable performances.
Shooting a gun in the air, like...
Slapping a priest.
Yeah. William Friedkin doesn't care, though. That's one I love listening to him do interviews. He just, like... He hates the film industry, and yet he makes movies.
Yeah, he's a very interesting guy. Very interesting.
He's like, what's his name? Who makes he made The Sopranos. I always forget his name.
David Chase.
David Chase. He hates TV. He wanted to make movies. He hates TV, and he made one of the greatest television shows of all time, and he hates the medium.
Yeah. Yeah, and they'd probably say something like along the lines of, yeah, but it was like, it was movie quality on television, though. They were just trying to kind of like say, but it wasn't really television.
Yeah, he's just trying to, which it is. It definitely elevated television, but he thought that he was going to get to make movies, and he ended up with a TV show. And it's just, it is still a different art form, so I guess you got to kind of look at it that way, and I guess it bothers him.
I would say so.
But one thing I wanted to ask you about was the effects when we realized that Ash is an alien, and we, they hook him back up again, and we get that, like, milk blood effects, and, like, his voice changes, and you just kind of hear, like, the milk kind of like getting in his mouth and everything the whole time. That scene kind of freaks me out.
Life form, priority one, all other priorities rescinded.
Yeah, it was good. It's a bit ropey in parts, when you see them like putting the rubber head down, and then there's like a quick cut, and then it's Ice's head. Well, the actor's head, Ian Holmes' head, and then it's the same when she says he gives that speech, that class speech. And he says, "Don't rate your chances." Yeah, and then you see Sigourney Weaver hits it over, and then it kind of cuts again, and it's the rubber head again. He's got this weird smell, like a
that's the one bad thing. And I read something about that head, that they had some problems with it, and that's probably why we barely get to see it in the movie. They just got to cut around it.
Yeah, the thing about that actual scene, to be honest with you, is the connotations around what he does to Ripley. I mean, before that scene.
Oh yeah, he goes after her, and I mean that freaks me out a little bit too. When he starts going crazy, first of all, very easy to take down if you just hit him in the head. How did nobody ever hit one of those in the head before?
Oh, well, you've got a 240-pound man with a fire extinguisher. It would take anybody's head off, I think.
You think? I'm not.
I wouldn't want to try it.
I kind of want to see like what happens now, because that head went just completely right,
completely off. But no, I wouldn't want Yaphet Kotto hitting my head with a fire extinguisher, full pelt, 200-odd-pound man. You know what I mean? Yeah, I think I would take many people's heads off. But the difference is, I mean, take your head off clean because you're human, but an android. Yes, the Terminator, no. It would be like when Kyle Reese hits him with the pole, you know what I mean? It would come back, right?
Yeah, in the second one, he just fixes his sunglasses and just rolls him like that. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, he would just do that to Yaphet Kotto. But what I'm saying is that before that, where Ash takes the magazine, I think it's a porn magazine, and tries to put it in her mouth. Oh, you know what that's supposed to be symbolizing?
I think I know what it's supposed to be symbolizing, right? It's a porn magazine.
Yeah, well, it's supposed to symbolize that he's trying to rape her.
Yeah, well, he's very forceful on her. A lot of the sex imagery and allegories in this movie are pretty obvious. It's a lot with the alien creature itself and how it looks.
Yeah, and there's pictures on the wall behind her of from the porn mag. So I mean, I'd heard about this over the years, and obviously I watched the making of like a long time ago. So watching it again, all Ridley Scott says was that he found it the reason he put that in the movie was because he found it interesting. Would a humanoid, did he name it? Would a humanoid have those type of feelings.
It raises
So
it definitely raised a lot of questions, that's for sure. And I mean, we're raising these questions about AI all the time. The creator that just came out this year did something similar like that. Like, what is it to be human? Like, is being a human being having human emotions, or is it being the actual physical form of a human being? You have to do question out. If he seems sentient, he seems like he would be capable of human emotions, especially when we get to Aliens and Lance Hendrickson. Like, that, he seems more human to me and has emotions.
Well, as for AI, so I don't know too much about them. I mean, to me, a machine only does what you program it to do. So it's like, for example, your phone or your computer, right? Yeah, your phone or your computer will only do what you tell it to do. Now, obviously, AIs are different. They can actually learn, right? So it doesn't need your input. It observes what other things are doing or what other people are doing, and it might mimic it. As for what is it to be human, I mean, I don't know. It's very what's that? Philosophical. Philosophical. That's the word. That's the word.
Yeah,
but I mean, look, yeah. But it's like, to me, I'm not a religious person, and I know that religion isn't exactly something that, I mean, it's not as popular as it used to be.
I mean, I'm
but
not
to me, being
I'm not a religious person either, so I'm right there with you on that.
Yeah, well, me being a human, but is having a soul,
So
and that's where we get our, but that's where we get our emotions from. That's what I believe, anyway. Now, people may do experiments and say, well, your emotions come from your brain because, you know, when you feel sad or whatever, or you feel happy. But no, I think a lot of your emotions come from here, from inside. Yeah, come from your heart, come from inside. You know what I mean? And I think that's, having a soul means that's where our human element comes. Is why I think that we have empathy and, you know, and things like that.
I'm hoping that what's it called? I hope that's what the truth is. I believe that we do have souls, and that's why we become human beings, and that's probably what does separate. And when you said something that actually that's probably 100% true, is that he's probably programmed to think that he's feeling these things, a lot like HAL 9000 and, you know, 2001: A Space Odyssey, where, you know, when he's getting pulled and starting to self-destruct, even though it's against his will, he starts to, like, go back to being a child in songs, singing that one song. He's just programmed for that. Like, we feel, because we feel empathy, like, we think it might be possible for these robots to feel it as well.
I think that what you mentioned empathy, or I think that the likes of like a robot detail and empathy, if it's an AI, it's because it's seen another human being empathetic, so it's learned that. It doesn't come natural, right? Or it's programmed to do that. So you take, for example, a film like Alien, right? In the scene we're talking about, okay, we can assume that this robot cannot perform intercourse like a normal person.
I don't
think
so.
No. So what does he do? He may have seen something in the magazines. He may have seen something else. Take, for example, the face hugger. How does it impregnate Kane?
Yes.
It's on his face. It has the tube down its throat and impregnates Kane. So what does he do? He rolls the magazine up and tries to stick it down her throat.
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's kind of exploring that. You know, what is it like? You know, to have this relationship with this female. You know, that's what I'm kind of thinking. So that's why I'm saying about. I say I'm not very religious and all the rest, and to talk about philosophy and all. But all I'm saying is, to me, being human is having a soul, and that's the difference. That's what separates us from machines. And that's what separates us. I mean, some people think animals don't even have souls. Do you know what I mean? That's what separates us from animals. I don't know.
I don't know.
Logic. I don't know.
I think my dogs have more empathy for anybody than than most human beings I've met. So I think they have souls.
Yes, exactly. Look, I agree with you as well. I know that's
now,
completely different.
The raccoon that lives on my property, that dick does not have a soul.
Yeah. And this the thing is, as well, I'm not just saying empathy is the only emotion. Do you know what I mean? We have. I mean, listen, humans can be some of the most despicable, you know, things in this earth. You know what I mean? And we can have anger, and we can be vindictive, and we can hurt other people, and we can hurt animals, and we can. Do you know what I mean? We can do all those types of things, but we're also capable of the other side of the spectrum, of love and helping people and caring for people and that other side as well. And nobody's perfect, and we've all done maybe at least one of these things in our lives. Do you know what I mean? But But you see it even in children. I see it. I see it in my daughter. She's only young, and she is full of empathy. To me, so that empathy, to a lot of ways, you can teach a child like right and wrong. That's what you're meant to do as a parent. You teach them right from wrong, right? And you teach them about danger and stuff like that. For example, don't touch a radio, it'll hurt you. Child touches a radio once and burns their hand, they won't do it again, right? That's what I mean. But you also teach them right for wrong. You know what I mean? Don't be treating people like that. Don't say that, blah blah blah. But what I see is like if I hurt myself, like my daughter would be the most empathetic person. Do you know what I mean? Give you a hug and make sure you're okay and things like that. So that to me, that's not learned. That's automatic. That's just being human, being concerned about somebody you love.
That's nature versus nurture, essentially. Like, you have to nurture your child to teach them right from wrong, but naturally they should learn empathy and true emotions for another human being or just another creature or something. They have to it has to be kind of naturally built into your core.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It doesn't have to be programmed. So let's put it like that. It doesn't have to be programmed, And that's the whole scary thing about AIs is as well, then, because even an AI isn't born with that. Okay, you could program it, but it isn't born with that. And it's kind of, to me, it's not even learning it, it's mimicking it. Yeah. It's never real. That's the creepy stuff about AIs, because they'll mimic it. Because if an AI mimics love, is that really love? It's only mimicking what it's seeing.
Yeah, an AI basically starts from nothing, which you could argue a human being starts from one cell, but there's a lot more to it. The AI starts from nothing, but it's learning stuff from how a human is behaving, and it's just like you just said, it's just mimicking what they do, but it doesn't truly understand what it is. It's just literally copying.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I think, and that's why I think that the likes of AI, when we see like AIs, like real AIs, and they look human, but your eye can tell right away that's not real. There's something off for that. That's creepy.
That's why I think for the first two Alien films, the AIs that they did cast are the ones who play the robots for the company. I think the actors both have their natural faces kind of lack emotion in them, and I think that's why they kind of work in that position, especially in the second one. Yeah,
especially Bishop, definitely. I do notice like the names, right? Ash, A, Bishop, B. Yeah. And I'm not sure, but then when we get the later ones, I think the one in Prometheus is called David. I'm not sure if the one in between is called begins with C. I don't know. Is there another one? I don't even know. It's been ages since I've watched Alien 3, and I don't even know if there's one in Alien 3. And then I've been years since I've watched Resurrection.
I don't remember the last time. I watched Alien 3 again last year, and you could see that Alien 3 clearly was inspired by the first Alien. They wanted to go back to basics, stuck in the middle of nowhere, only have a very limited amount of aliens. It wanted to basically go away from what Aliens was, which I know you're a big James Cameron guy, and I've heard a rumor, I don't know how 100% true this is, but I like to think this story is awesome, is when James Cameron pitched Aliens, he just went into a room and went into a dry erase board in front of all the producers, and he wrote Alien, then put an S at the end, and then put a money sign through it.
I put a line through it, so it was like $1 sign. Yeah. I did have heard that. That's what he done. Yeah, to the executives. Yeah. Aliens.
Now, I want to believe that, but at this point, when Aliens is coming out, all he did was make Piranha 2 and got fired. And yes, Terminator was a hit, but I just can't imagine him. Like, yes, we know James Cameron has balls on him, but can he have that much already to call his shot like that?
I don't know. I'd have to look into it, and hopefully they will do Aliens one day. But I did listen to Michael Biehn was on a podcast recently, and it might have been actually he was on this podcast before, and then he came back. So I don't know if it was the most recent one or the older one, but he said that when they were got the green light to make Terminator, Arnold was contracted to make, I think it was Conan the Destroyer.
Yeah, same year they came out.
Yeah, so Terminator had to be pushed back, so that gave them a lot of time to kind of prep Terminator. But in the meantime, James Cameron wrote the script Aliens, so he had already been contracted to write Aliens before Terminator had even started shooting. So I don't know how he got the job. I don't know if he got the job because of the Terminator script, and maybe he wasn't going to direct. Maybe they didn't have him in mind to direct it. Maybe it was just, and also he hadn't wrote Rambo 2 by then. He hadn't, because Rambo 2 came out in 1985. So I don't know whether or not they just give him a writing job, and when they seen the job he done on the Terminator, he lobbied himself to direct it, and I went, yeah,
Yeah, maybe. I've always been very curious because that's the weird window when James Cameron was doing a lot of work because he was a young up and coming filmmaker at that point. It really wasn't until the 1-2 punch of Terminator and Aliens that he kind of basically got to do what he wanted, and that's why we end up like The Abyss, which is clearly a passion project for him. You know.
Yeah.
Because basically after he does True Lies in '94, he's made 3 movies, and that's it. That's
yeah, well, I mean, like, you know, I think that the Terminator became more of a hit when it came out on video. Done well at the box office, but it became more of a cult hit, and there was talk of a sequel like for years. So by the time they were making the sequel, it was a case of what do you call the studio? Would it be a T2? It was Coralico?
Caraco. Yeah, that one's always been a
Caraco.
tough one. I always remember their logo more than anything with that scene that's always locked.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it always reminds me of Terminator 2 when I see it.
Yes.
Yeah. I just waiting on the but it's not a rant. But anyway, when they bought the rights, because there was a whole rights issue with Terminator 2. I'm sure you're aware of this, being a big T2 fan. But the whole thing was that when they decided to make the sequel, like, they went to Jim Cameron and went, "No, you need to do it. This is yours." And of course, Arnie was lobbying for it as well, and he was always on it. James Cameron, we're going to do a sequel. So it was them, and so they kind of give him carte blanche type of thing, and they paid him more money than he'd ever been paid in his life to make the T2, and they give him one of the biggest budgets as well. So it was hard for him to turn down. So he basically, I don't think that he got T2 because of The Abyss or Aliens. I'm sure it helped. I think he got T2. Well, I'm sure that did help, but he got T2 because of T1. That's what it looked like to me. It was kind of like, you done T1, you know what I mean? How to make an action movie? We're letting you do whatever you want. So do you know what I'm saying? It wasn't just kind of like, oh, he's just Jim Cameron, let's just give him what he wants. It was because he had done the previous.
That's a good point. It's just they're so different between T1 and T2 as far as, like, you could just see the money. Like, when I think of James Cameron, I just think of him always advancing technology, and he just didn't have that really with Aliens and Terminator. They always just kind of feel like they feel different from the rest of James Cameron's filmography to me. Like, T2 feels very similar. I don't know when the last time you watched True Lies, but they're shot identically, the two of them. They have that very similar, like, blue lighting that, like, James likes to do, and it just feels like he knew how to shoot action. Like, nobody shoots action like James Cameron. That's the one thing. He just shoots it and it looks real, and that's why in Terminator 2, like you said, they gave him whatever he wanted. The man flew a helicopter under a bridge for real. Like, that's insane to me. You know, like, to get what he wanted.
Yeah.
It gets interesting. You see this helicopter going under a freeway overpass?
Yeah, that was real?
The camera crew said, we won't shoot that. So I said, okay, fine, I'll shoot it myself.
But do you not think that blue light has always been in his movies? I mean, it kind of is in Terminator 1, and it is in Aliens, that blue sheen. But I know what you mean. By the time you got the T2, I think there was also warmer colours in that movie as well. But it's been a long time since I've seen True Lies. I just feel as if Aliens and Terminator are a wee bit more grittier than Terminator 2, say, or True Lies. Yeah, I think it was after T2. It was kind of like, a lot of people were kind of like, you could do what you want, because it wasn't like he was the type of guy that was churning out movies every single year. Do you know what I mean? He was kind of one of these guys that whenever he felt like it.
Yeah, he never felt like a Spielberg to me. He never felt like he only wanted to do what he wanted to do, James Cameron. He just had to build up enough, like, what do they call that? Clout to be able to do what he wanted. He had to actually get, like, he had to have a bunch of wins for it to actually happen for him. Whereas, like, people like Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese, Ridley Scott, like, they don't stop working. Whereas James Cameron's like, I'm only going to do this one movie for the next 10 years, and that's it.
Yeah, well, Spielberg to me is the type of guy that when he wakes up in the morning, he's thinking about films, and when he goes to bed at night, he's thinking about movies. Even when he finishes a movie, he's probably thinking about the next one. Whereas James Cameron to me, even though they're both artists, James Cameron to me, especially more recently, but he's moved away from movie making, and like even Avatar 2, there was talk that he made Avatar 2 just so he could fund his next, whatever he's going to do next, dive or make another submarine.
No sea too deep, who's that? It's him, James Cameron.
Systems are normal. You guys hearing the song okay up there?
Do you know what I mean? So it's almost like that his passion for movies has dwindled, and he wants to do more. He's become more of an explorer. I mean, and this has been something that has been in the back of his mind since the early 90s. And I know he's talked about that he's scuba dived since the 70s, and he's always had like the idea of being an explorer. But when you think about the reason that he said that he made Titanic was so he could dive the real wreck.
Yeah, that was a big deal for him, so he could do that, and he just pitched it to the studios, and they bought it, which just shows you again that he's a confident guy in himself, and people, I guess, just resonate with that, because I know the difference between Alien and Aliens is that a big thing was they still filmed them both in London, and Ridley Scott, he's a British guy, whereas James Cameron, he's a Canadian. He went there, and he did not like the labor laws where they stopped for tea time and everything and filming, and Sigourney Weaver had to kind of be the medium between James Cameron and the whole crew.
Yeah, and the British crew. Yeah, that's right. I heard that. I mean, he's very demanding filmmaker, so I would say that probably problems on both sides there. Do you know what I mean? Where he's not understanding which way the British crew works, and the British crew just don't want to work the way he wants to work. That probably loggerheads over that. But what do you think about the actual effects in Alien?
I love the effects in Alien. I love everything they do. I love the way they use the miniatures. I love the way they make these sets paint that they look dirty and dusty and just disgusting. But I also love the way the alien creature, it looks like that is so unique itself. The head of that looks just disgusting and dirty, and then his mouth opens and he's got the second mouth. That is just incredible design for everything throughout the entire film. Amazing. I don't know. What do you think about them? Yeah,
listen, it's all in the artistry. I really just love the artistry in this movie as well. I mean, you had two separate teams. You had one team that was working on the human stuff side of things, like the Nostromo and all their instruments and things like that. And then you had another team working on the alien and the alien planet. That included H.R. Giger, who designed the alien and the chest burster and the face hugger and things like that. If you see that guy in the suit out in the open in the brightness, it doesn't look great. It maybe just be, I mean, if he's just standing there, it looks a bit silly looking. But again, it's once you put him in that environment of the spaceship with the smoke and the KY jelly all over the mouth and dripping, that's when it genuinely looks creepy. That's when it comes to life.
I would actually be very curious to see how much of the full alien we see throughout the entire film, where you actually could see it from feet to top. I think there's only a couple scenes towards the very end when it's just Ridley versus her.
Yeah.
And even like you just said, there's a lot of smoke around, and it's almost moving very fast. They sped up the film a little bit to make it look uneasy for your eyes to catch, because I don't think they want you to see it. Just like in Jaws, once you reveal the monster too much, it's just not the same.
Exactly, and there's some of it's there kind of he's moving very kind of slow like this at times, I find as well. And I remember when I was watching the making of as well, apparently it was H.R. Giger actually wasn't happy because he says to them that they weren't showing it enough, and they had to reassure him that Ridley Scott says you'll see enough of it, don't worry, you will see enough. But the funny thing is about the alien. Now, I think you might have watched the same one because you mentioned the conversation between Ripley and Dallas to do with Ice, which I don't think is in the theatrical version. It's in the director's cut. Yeah. And I watched the director's cut. Is that the one that you watched, Dan?
Yeah. I've seen them both, but I actually, Ridley Scott is one director that if he makes a director's cut, I'll always watch the director's cut because he seems to understand. He even said, in his, did you get the same 5-minute interview before the director's cut starts?
Yeah.
Of him pretty much explaining, this is how he originally, he added some stuff, took some stuff out. He said he's very proud of the theatrical cut. And I still like it, but, I think it's not a crazy additions or anything to the director's cut. I think it is the better version.
No, exactly, and I like both versions as well. It just depends. It kind of depends on what mood I'm in, and maybe if I'm gonna have a marathon or something. Do you know what I mean? Because the reason I'm saying is that whole scene with Dallas and Brett in the cocoon. There was this whole idea that this is the controversy you see, which happened with the Alien and Aliens, because it was almost like the alien was becoming it was self-generating, it was self-sufficient. Do you know what I mean? It was creating another egg out of Brett, and it was feeding off Dallas.
Yeah, Dallas was just basically getting the life sucked out of him.
Yeah, so the whole idea was that when you see the alien in the wee shot at the end, where you think that she's blew up the space. Well, she has blew up the spaceship, Ripley, and you think that the alien is in there, and then she goes into the wee shuttle and starts getting undressed to go to sleep, right? And the aliens are in it, and the arm just comes out and scares her.
Oh yeah.
And the alien doesn't move. And I mean, you're watching it, you go, why is the alien just lying there? Why is it not moving for? Do you ever wonder why that is?
I've always wondered, but I just assumed, like, that's kind of when I realized when the alien was on that ship that the alien was a lot smarter than we realize. Like, you know, it might be ugly looking, but it knows. It learns very fast. It's working ahead of them, I feel like.
Well, do you know what it actually is? And it's been a while since I've actually read this book. I've been meaning to go back and read it again about the making of Alien. The whole idea was that the alien only lived a couple of days. It was dying.
Oh, really?
It's like a fly. It was like a fly. So that's why it took Brett and Dallas. Brett was being turned into an egg, and then Dallas was there to, well, I assume, for the face hugger to go on his face. Like we see in Aliens. Do you remember when they go down inside and you see all the people like up in the cocoons and they're going, kill me, like Dallas, and the chest bursts out of his stomach, and then they put the flamethrower on them.
Yeah.
Like in like I couldn't believe that when I first seen that special edition. I was like, because you think James Cameron invented all that, but he didn't. So he obviously had seen this because there was talk of this deleted scene.
I guess that means that Ridley Scott must have talked to James Cameron about that and been like, "Here, I'll show you the other footage," because this didn't come out till 2003, the director's cut.
But see, the thing is as well, look, I would maybe need to research it, and then when we do Aliens, do you know what I mean? I could look into it because it's very interesting about. I think it's very interesting. I love Aliens as well. It's a great film. It's up there with Alien. But the thing is that it's very interesting about as a sequel and what James Cameron done to create a sequel, right? And he got a bit of a backlash about that because the whole thing was that the whole backlash was to do with the fact that he created an alien queen that laid eggs. But the aliens are supposed to be self-generating.
True.
So that was the whole point of that scene. In the special edition, it was showing you that it's creating an egg out of Brett, and it's the facehugger's going to go on Dallas, and it's going to create another alien, and then this other alien who done this is going to die. Yeah, and it'll happen again and again and again, and that was the whole thing. So that's what I'm saying about what edition you watch. So you could watch Alien as one movie, and then go, well, that's the life cycle of an alien, right? But with that scene out, and then you watch Aliens, you go, there's a queen that lays all these eggs. That's where it comes from. So James Cameron kind of changed the lore and the idea of how the aliens kind of generate, or the life cycle of an alien. Yeah,
it's very short. Just like that's very fascinating, like a fly. Like you got to actually reproduce it and then the original dies. That's fascinating. Yeah, I never really thought too much about that, even though it's compared to the director's cut and the cut Aliens. I never put that together like that. Makes a lot more sense, though. That's for sure. Yeah,
I must actually look at it again because the book I had actually told it actually had it in a diagram, life cycle of the alien. Do you know what I mean? So taken in a vacuum of just Alien and not a sequel, that's supposed to be, I think, the way this animal or this creature or this alien lives. But now we all know and love Aliens, and we think of it being completely different. But it throws up all other questions, like, for example, the alien spaceship. The space jockey. What is that? Where was this spaceship going? Why is there so many alien eggs on there? And if they need a host, what host does it use? And then, like, with the lore of Alien as well, over the years, I've seen, like, for example, you have Alien 3, which has the dog alien. Is that what it's called? The dog alien?
That's exactly what they call it, dog alien.
The dog alien, yeah. So there's this thought that the facehugger can impregnate any creature, and then it kind of like regenerates a version of an alien with the characteristics of that host. So you heard him saying in the first movie, I can't remember who says it. I think is it Aish? They said about the alien when it killed Brett and somebody and Parker says this thing's huge, like it's massive. It's and so one of them says Kane's son.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when I was reading about that alien and the guy who plays him, it's a 6'10" guy who's actually in a suit, and he said, like, the aliens do take, well, in his mind, he said the alien takes some stuff from its host, and in this case, it's a human being. So that's why he would kind of walk around still, like, on hind legs like a human being, because, like you just said, it's able to impregnate any creature, and I guess it blends, like, the original DNA of an alien with whatever the host is, whatever the body it decides to take over. So if it's a dog, then it's kind of got some characteristics of a dog.
Yeah. So I don't know. Look, I don't know if that was the idea. You're saying that the guy that played the alien said that?
Yeah, the guy I was reading that on Wikipedia today. That was his interpretation of it. He was right, yeah, like a big guy, but he was kind of saying it more in like a tongue-in-cheek thing, because like he didn't get like a huge direction from it. He said he took like martial arts classes and stuff to try and move around in the suit, but he said the suit was so restricting anyway. Like a lot of the movements are him actually just trying to move around anyway.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, look, I thought it was good when the likes of Ridley Scott was saying about creating the suit, that he wanted to be like as strong as a what did he say? As strong as a condom? Is that what he said? I think he said. But he says, yeah, I think he says, but they couldn't get. He says any type of latex that strong in a suit with detail in it, without it ripping and breaking. So, but I found it very interesting to say that when they created the head as well, that they had so many, that 900 moving parts. I was like, where the hell was the 900 moving parts? But they stripped it back. They took a lot of those parts out, and it was the guy that created the aliens for Close Encounters of the Third Kind that they got it. They actually create the alien.
And the alien came out good. I think the alien actually, I love the design. And it really does fascinate me because it's a very unique looking design, especially for the 70s. Like the aliens in Close Encounters, they look like stereotypical aliens when we see them. Like what you would imagine a fake alien, like when you're like 6 years old. But like the alien creature, it's very original, and it looks scary. It looks more like a horror villain. It looks like something literally created out of somebody who screwed up's mind. Like it doesn't look like what I think an alien would look like. That's why it's so fascinating that they ended up with one of the greatest creature designs, and they don't overblow it in this movie at all.
No, they don't. And look, that's the genius of H.R. Giger, and that was the whole thing when Dan O'Bannon met him and seen his paintings. He was like, that's the alien. And he said, Dan O'Bannon said the same thing when he brought Ridley Scott in and went and showed him the paintings. And went, what do you think of that? And first thing Ridley Scott says was, that's the alien. And Dan O'Bannon says, I agree. And the whole thing was that the guy, I think his name's Ron Cobb, who was one of the designers on the movie, before they decided to use Giger's designs, he was designing like the Nostromo and stuff, and they asked him to design the alien, and his alien looked like the Fly. It looked terrible looking, and it kind of makes you wonder. You go to yourself, imagine this movie if that had been the alien. It wouldn't have been as creepy. Look, I would say, Scary, when I was watching the making of, and when the film was released, and they were saying about how people were fainting in the cinema and screaming and being sick and all this, I never ever found, me personally, I just never found this movie scary. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it's because it's in space and it's because it's an alien, but I just find it creepy.
Well, when I say something scary, nothing really scares me about a movie. I just know that that's what their intention is. I think the problem with me and you is when we grew up, we had already grown up with like Alien and Aliens and everything already being out, like The Exorcist. Like we're talking about people coming through the 70s who were seeing this as like in their 20s or 30s. They grew up with movies like in the 60s, like movies with code that they have to follow. We already grew up when that stuff has already been thrown out the window and you can put whatever the hell you want on film. So we've seen some violent, scary movies. To go back to Alien, and we don't really see the alien too much, and like you said, it's in space. Like we think as human beings, like, well, we're never gonna end up on we don't even go to space as it is. Nonetheless, to end up on a spaceship that has a bunch of working class people on it, where this is their job and they're not being paid well already, we've had to go through a lot of cycles to get to that point. So of course that's not gonna really scare us too much, but I imagine in the 70s going to a movie theater and seeing that, what you're used to, probably petrifying.
Yeah, no, that's you're probably right. That's probably a fair point there. You know what I mean? I'd probably seen worse by the time I'd seen Alien. I remember the first time I actually seen it, it was on television. So it was one of those movies that kind of like, it's one of those movies that growing up in the 90s, because I would have been too young in the 80s to even think about Alien or anything like that. Maybe even late 80s, early 90s, whatever. It was one of those movies that my parents would maybe mention now and again, like, because me being a big Jaws fan or whatever, do you know what I mean? And you're maybe scary movies that I wasn't allowed to really watch scary movies. You know what I mean? But I always remember my parents mentioning films like Psycho, you know what I mean, and Alien and things like that. So, and then your friends would start talking about it. You know, if you see an Alien, I'd be like, no, or mainly Aliens, to be honest with you, because it was a more exciting movie. You know, and so there was this kind of mythology built up around it before you'd even seen it. But then I remember the first time I actually seen it, it was on television one night, and I recorded it off the TV, and it was cut out. It was all edited. But I remember watching that movie again and again and again, and it's just something made me keep returning to it. Do you know what I mean? But the legs of the chest burster scene and all that was kind of all edited down. So I don't think I actually seen the unedited version, like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh yeah, that's I think I've only seen it when it was. I don't think I've ever seen Alien on TV. I did see Aliens on TV. The first time I ever saw Aliens was on TV, and I saw Aliens before Alien. So I went back. And a lot of people I knew went back, and most of them still preferred Aliens because that's the more action-packed, fast-paced film. But I always preferred Alien. I always liked the slow nature of it, and also we haven't even talked about it yet. We're an hour 10 in. The Jerry Goldsmith score.
Yeah, I really, and I said on our last pod there that I just find that the movies that I love, I also love the scores, and I think it adds so much to the movies that I love, and this is one of them. It's not, it's very understated, you know, it's very subtle, and it plays more to the atmosphere of the movie than it does a rousing score.
Yeah, this isn't a score that, like, I was listening to it at work, and, like, I work a physical job, and I'm like, this isn't exactly working for what I'm trying to do right now, because it works perfectly in the film, especially right from the opening. Like, it's just playing underneath everything and helping you build that atmosphere. That's where it's perfect for that. It really lends itself to the film more than anything.
Exactly, and I also feel that the actual music for the monster, look, I'm not knocking it. I still like it, but it's very kind of the music for the monster is very B movie-ish. It's almost like a 1950s. Isn't it? With the horns and all.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And then especially, I mean, a lot of this movie, I love this movie. But when they end up in the very end of this movie, and she's wearing like those very small underwear and fighting it off, I'm just like, what? It feels a little out of place here, everything.
But because she strips down?
Yeah, well, she strips down, and then the underwear she's wearing, I don't think those are for adults.
Yeah, it's hanging off her. Yeah. Look, you know what? I don't have an issue with her stripping down. I'm not being
I don't have
pervy or anything like that.
I don't have an issue with her stripping down.
No. I think the reason she strips down, to be perfectly honest with you, is because she has to get into the spacesuit. They lay it out that she's stripping down because she's going to sleep. She's getting in the pod to go to sleep, and then she notices the alien, but she runs right to the closet where the spacesuits are, and she has to get in the spacesuit. It would be difficult to get into the spacesuit if she was wearing her other suit over the top of it. Would I be wrong or right in saying that? And it would be, you know, too kind of long and distracting to watch her get undressed in the closet because she's just got to sneak into it. That's my thinking of it. But I do agree with you. There's no reason for wearing that skimpy underwear.
I just don't think they're adults' underwear. That's all.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think where she would have got them from, but there was no kids on the thing, was there? No.
I think the company gave them to her. She does have a daughter, though. So.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. She's packed in by accident.
Yeah, she grabbed the wrong ones, and she's like, oh, damn, now I'm not going to get these fixed for 3 years, or whatever the hell long they're on the ship.
She's like, I'll be all right. Nobody will see me in them. And then the next thing is the alien sees her in them. But it's funny, just going back to the score, it was actually funny seeing in the making of the fact that Jerry Goldsmith wasn't happy with the score for the movie.
It is crazy, right? That he wouldn't be happy, because I don't get that. Like, it's a great score. I mean, it's just like, maybe it's because it doesn't sound like we were saying, and it just doesn't have that bombastic take to it, I guess.
Well, he says that he went home and he wrote like this opening title track. It took him all day, and then played it, and Ridley Scott said it's brilliant, but nah, we're not using it. Go and write something else. And he was like, "Why? What's wrong with it?" And he says, "It's not what we need for the start." And he wasn't happy with that. But he says he ended up the opening title he wrote in 5 minutes. And he actually said what you said there, John, yourself about the score. He says that he believes a score for a movie should also not just enhance the movie, but you should be able to listen to it outside of the movie. And he feels as if Alien only enhanced the movie. You can't listen to it outside of the movie.
Cannot.
Yeah. To the point where they bought the rights of another movie, the score, right, of another movie that he had done, and they put it in the Alien. I can't remember the name of the movie. And he was that enraged that he went to the head of Fox and told him that they're going to ruin this film.
Well, I guess that's the one thing about making a movie is like you have so many moving parts. I guess you really don't know how it's all going to come together until the very end when it's finally edited with all the stuff, because they do use temp tracks throughout an entire film until you finally get the official score. So you got to hope it all works, like, because you can get a movie, get a bad score in there.
Yeah.
But his score works perfectly with the film. It's a good counterpart with the film.
Yeah, well, according to the making of, they actually had to persuade him to do that type of score. The editor and Ridley Scott, they said that you said they used temp tracks and they used a lot of Jerry Goldsmith's other work and said, look, this is what we're looking for. And he kind of went, oh, you want me to repeat myself? So, yeah. And I don't know. Look, I don't know much about Jerry Goldsmith. I love his music. He's up there. Like, I love John Williams, and then Jerry Goldsmith is below him for me, right? But the thing is that, you know, Jerry Goldsmith says in the making of, he pretty much was a wee bit derogatory towards Ridley Scott and says that was his first, one of his first movies, and maybe now, if he was to get a composer in, that he will have, he didn't say like he would have learned, but he kind of implied that he would do things differently because he didn't know very much back then. That's what he implied. Yeah. And I thought that's very presumptuous of you.
I guess, you know, these guys got egos, and all of them. And I've heard things about Ridley Scott, too, that he's not the most, and he seems like that in interviews, he's not the warmest guy to approach. So he's not like James Cameron yelling or anything, but he's like, he's a little bit cold.
Yeah. And there was a feeling on this too when I was watching the behind the scenes stuff that the actor says that they weren't getting enough from him. But I mean, I was watching interviews with Alfred Hitchcock, and Alfred Hitchcock was just kind of like, you know, you're the actor.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a lot of how directors think. You know, not all of them. There's a lot of, like, Martin Scorsese apparently loves input from his actors, but certain directors, like Stanley Kubrick was one of them, he just sees actors as a part of telling his story. This is like the script, the writer does his job, your job is to do this, but I'm the boss, and I'm here to move my chess pieces around the board as I see fit. And you're here to do your job, and I expect you to be prepared to do your job when you get here. And that's just how some directors feel. He's like, I don't care what you're bringing. You do what's on the page, and that's what we're here to do. Yeah.
So that's that famous anecdote that Alfred Hitchcock got asked about a lot in the 60s and 70s, where an actress said that Alfred Hitchcock says that actors are cattle. And Alfred Hitchcock was asked about it several times in the 60s and 70s. Is it true that you said actors are cattle? And he says, no, I never said that. I says they have to be treated like cattle. But then there's Spielberg as well, whereas like Liam Neeson told a story about the start of Schindler's List, where he's standing taking a drag of a cigarette, and Spielberg kept telling them how to do it. And apparently that night, Liam Neeson said to one of his fellow actors, he says, is this guy going to F and tell me how to move all day, every day? He wasn't happy with that. But that's not Spielberg. Spielberg doesn't usually do that. Spielberg is usually more open to kind of letting the actors add to their character and kind of, you know, give a bit of input back. So it must have been just specifically that movie that Spielberg had an idea of what he really wanted, you know, to capture in that shot.
Is that like one of the first movies that he ever did that was a true story? Because I've read I mean, maybe we'll do Schindler's List one day, but the one thing about Schindler's List is that movie was very serious for Steven Spielberg. Like, you know, that was a big...
It
like,
was.
They were filming in Auschwitz. Like, he took it seriously, what he was doing. Like, he felt like he had to honor the Jewish people. So I wonder if him doing that with Liam Neeson is like, we're talking about Oscar Schindler here. I know what he's supposed to look like and what he's supposed to be doing, and I just want you to do what's in my mind for this character. Maybe his loose energy that he usually has kind of just went away a little bit on that set specifically.
Yeah, it's not, I totally agree with you. I think so. But what you're saying about was the first true story, I don't think so. Empire of the Sun. Now, I haven't seen Empire. Yeah, I haven't seen Empire of the Sun. It's been one of the ones I want to watch, and I haven't seen The Color Purple either, so I'm not sure if that's based on a true story. But I remember seeing an interview with Spielberg where he said that, I don't know if we talked about this before in one of our pods, we made it on, I can't remember now, but that Sid Sheinberg, who run Universal Pictures, had bought Schindler's Ark, the novel, or the book, or whatever it was, in the early 80s for Spielberg, and said to him, I've bought it for you, I want you to make this movie. And Spielberg had said, I'll do it when I'm ready. And in recent years, Spielberg has come out and said that the reason he done The Color Purple and the Empire of the Sun was so he could build up to doing Schindler's List. And at one stage, it was actually Martin Scorsese was penciled to do Schindler's List, and Spielberg was going to do Cape Fear, isn't that right? And then they swapped. Yep. But it was originally for Spielberg, but he always felt as if he wasn't mature enough to do it. And I found that fascinating that this guy actually knew that he didn't have the maturity to do a serious movie like that in the 80s. And he kind of used like The Color Purple and Empire of the Sun as like a trial with himself to see if he's going to be ready to do this.
Well, that's funny because like a lot of people do knock The Color Purple because they feel like Spielberg didn't show enough of what's like in the original like text. I always thought, I'm not 100% sure on The Color Purple if that's a true story or not. They just remade it this year. I don't know if that's like a work of fiction that's like based on some sort of fact, but a lot of people will say that the one that came out this past year, is finally leading into what the true story is, whereas not the true story, but like the true nature of the story, whereas Spielberg held stuff back. Empire of the Sun, though, got a lot of good reviews at the time, but yeah, I could see but they not as much as like Schindler's List. Like Schindler's List, like tops like best pictures ever made, and it's a brutal, realistic take on one of the horrors of war, one of the most horrific things ever. And for him to nail that, I can imagine he was extremely serious on set with making sure everything. And I could see that with Spielberg definitely build it up. I've heard those stories with Scorsese and how he was originally going to direct it, but then they swapped and he got Cape Fear because Cape Fear is a remake and he wanted to pay homage Scorsese to Hitchcock. I don't know if last time you watched Cape Fear, but he takes a lot of shots right from Hitchcock.
Oh, do you know what? I've only seen Cape Fear once. One of the ones I want to go back and watch again. But yes, of course, from the opening shot, you can just tell that and he actually got Saul Bass as well to do the credits at the start and stuff. Yeah. As soon as it came on, but I watched it years ago. Say years ago, it was about 7 or 8 years ago. It was on TV, and I'd never seen it. And put it on, and that opening shot, I went, it's Hitchcock.
Yeah. This is his.
Listen,
there's so many shots where we'll just get like a slight angle on a phone or something, and I'm just like, oh my god, there's just so many shots right out of Hitchcock.
Listen, Scorsese's been doing that his whole career, and there's a documentary actually on I think it's the Sego Blu-ray. If you get the chance, watch it, and it's paying tribute to Hitchcock, and it has all the filmmakers on there talking about him: Spielberg, Scorsese, Brian De Palma as well. He's another one, and I think Scorsese and De Palma just say outright, blatantly, yeah, we rip him off in every one of our movies, and you can watch any of Scorsese's movies. You can watch Go Back to Main Streets, you can watch Taxi Driver, you can watch Raging Bull, you can watch Goodfellas, and every single one of them movies, there's Hitchcock shots in every single one of them. And if you're a Hitchcock fan, you spot them right away.
Oh man, he takes a lot, but nobody takes as much as Brian De Palma. Brian De Palma.
Oh yeah.
Brian De Palma might as well just say, I just take Alfred Hitchcock's movies, and now I'm just making Hitchcock movies since he passed away. Because most of his movies are just Hitchcock films in general.
Oh yeah, Dress to Kill is his attempt to make Psycho. Like a modern day Sego, and here's one for you as well that I maybe should have mentioned in the Sego pod. For example, in Raging Bull, when Jake LaMotta's on the ropes and he's getting pummeled by Sugar Ray Robinson on the ropes. Do you remember that?
Yep.
And it cuts and it cuts and it cuts and it cuts. Every single cut and every single shot is a shot-for-shot remake of the shower scene in Psycho.
You know what? I remember reading that too when I was doing Raging Bull last year, and it's very obvious, that scene, when you think about it. But I mean, a lot of his edits that he always likes to do it's just so much out of Hitchcock, but none of them were more obvious than Cape Fear. And it's weird because I don't think he directed Cape Fear, so it's weird that he wanted to make his own Hitchcock film.
Was it Howard Hawks done the original Cape Fear? I can't remember.
The original, I think it was. I know it wasn't. What's his name though?
No, it definitely wasn't Hitchcock anyway.
No, it's just weird that he decided to make like his own Hitchcock film. But it was directed by J. Lee Thompson.
Ah, right. Okay, yeah, because it came out like in the 50s or something, didn't it?
1963. It actually has one of my...
63.
Is it 63? Hold on a second. 62. 62. And actually, it has one of my favorite performances because Robert Mitchum, who's in the remake of Cape Fear at the very beginning, he's the warden who comes to let him out. He just has that distinct voice. He pops up in there, but he does a great job in the original Cape Fear.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original one. That's one I must actually watch because I know it's an absolute classic.
I'm gonna be honest, I like the remake more, but that's just because it's Robert De Niro, and I mean, I love it. And also, that's the first time I ever saw somebody put Pepto-Bismol in bourbon, so I've never seen anything like that in my life.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it. I do want to watch it again, like, because it's Scorsese and it is, it's a good show, like, really is.
Yeah. But you got anything else you want to say about Alien? Because we're at about an hour and a half.
Oh, but Jesus, didn't realize it was this long. Look, to be honest, John, I could sit and I could talk about Alien for another 4 hours, to be honest. There's so much in this movie, as you say. Look, I know I said at the start that it's a simple story. I still feel as if from A to B to C to D, you know what I mean? It is simple that way, but I agree with you. There is layers in this film to discuss. As I say, it's an undeniable classic, and it's one of those movies. Well, I don't think it's aged any either, and it's creeping up my top 10 list. It really is. I was kind of on the fence, like Close Encounters, Alien. I think they're neck and neck at the minute.
I have that problem too. I was gonna ask you that, like, where would you put this in like your Alien film, like painting knowledge? Like, it's right there for me. Like, I'm a big Close Encounters guy too. That's one of the movies we did here. I don't even. I like The Thing, came out in '82. That's an Alien movie as well, and I love that movie. I don't know. It'd be really tough. It could change day to day.
Yeah, do you know what? Because we done the Close Encounters rewatch, or pod as well, and I hadn't seen it in a few years, and I just love that film. So it's just a feel good movie at the end.
There's no emotional coming out of this other than like certain dread and atmosphere with Alien, whereas Close Encounters, yeah, it could pull some emotions out of you.
Exactly. So one day, as I say, I might say, "Oh, it's Close Encounters," and then another day I'll go, "Oh, it's Alien." Like I was watching Alien last weekend, and I was thinking about it. I was going to myself, like, do I like this more? So I don't know. I would have to I'm gonna have to revise my top 10 at some stage, but I'm not 100% sure. But they are probably my two favorite Alien movies. I can't think of any other Alien movies that would be above them. To be fair with you,
yeah. I know you. I don't know how you feel about The Thing, but The Thing would be up there competing with that too for me because I'm just a huge fan of that movie.
Yeah, do you know what? And that's what I was going to say about The Thing. Like, I really like The Thing, but there's part of me that thinks that it's. I don't want to say overrated because I don't want to offend anybody. I know there's a lot of.
I respect it.
But don't get me. I really like The Thing, and but do you know what I actually like more than The Thing? 1978's Invasion of the Body Snatchers.
I just rewatched that, and that movie is a classic. I love that movie too. And you know what?
Love that film.
I don't know if you watched the show that me and Carmela did about.
I did. I did listen to it. Yes.
So did you do you buy into what I was saying about the sound effect in The Thing and the sound effect at the end of Invasion of the Body Snatchers? How similar they sound?
Yeah, I remember you mentioning that, and I thought you had a really good point. And it could be a similar kind of tying in. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes directors do that as like a wee nod.
Yeah, because they're only 4 years apart. It's not like, it could be an inspiration on him. It's like he had to know that because that came out the same year as Halloween.
Yeah, and like the thing about The Thing is as well. I remember like when you get it, I was saying earlier on about wasn't allowed to watch the scary movies when I was young, and like being in school, we were school friends, and I always heard people talk about Christine and The Thing and Halloween and things like that. So when I got of age to kind of experience these movies, like in my 20s, when I was making a DVD collection, and I was kind of like, I remember actually buying The Thing and watching it and being underwhelmed by it, and I don't know if that's because it was built up, but since then I have watched it a few more times, and I really like it. It's a top film. It could arguably be Carpenter's best movie, right? It's so well made, it's so well acted, it's such a good story, and like Alien, the atmosphere is amazing as well. Sorry, but the thing is too, and I actually remember one night, or one day calling in to see my parents, and my mum and dad says to me, "Oh no, we watched last night," and I went, "The Thing," and I went, "From 1982, John Carpenter's," and they went, "Yeah," and I went, "It's class, isn't it?" They went, "It's amazing." Do you know what I mean? Like, and that's what I'm saying. And I've recommended it to friends who have never seen it before, and they come back and say to me, "Thanks for recommending that to me. That's, film's outstanding. I don't know why I've never seen it before." So it's a top movie. I just sometimes think that it's overpraised in a sense where, is it better than Alien? I don't think it's better than Alien for me. I don't think it's better than Close Encounters. Is it better than Aliens? Is it? And as I said already, said the other, I really like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I think that is an underrated sci-fi horror movie. The paranoia and a feel of dread in that movie is genuinely scary.
Invasion of the Body Snatchers has a lot more to say about humanity and has way deeper themes than Alien. Like I was saying how I defended the story of Alien, I still think that, you know, it's not the most, as much as I think the screenplay is good, it's not like as layered as like the deep meanings of Invasion of the Body Snatchers. There's a lot to that story and what it's trying to say. You know, same like The Thing, you know, that same thing. It's like, I would say Alien is by far out of all those movies the best made, I think. Even with Close Encounters and Alien are both the best made films, but because when you watch Alien, you're transported to another world. That's one thing that's special about this movie.
I think the thing too as well, John, is that when we're talking about these particular 4 Alien movies that come out in the space of what did they come out in the space of 3 years of each other, or 4 years of each other, 1978 to 1982.
Yeah, 4 years we get all these movies, which is crazy actually.
Yeah, and E.T. as well. But I think the difference there for me is that Close Encounters, we had never seen an Alien movie like that before, where it was about humanity making contact and the aliens were friendly. Whereas, like, if you look at Invasion of the Body Snatchers and you look at Alien and then you look at The Thing, it's like what I said at the start of the pod. These 3 things were all very similar, as in, like, it was about aliens defeating humans, you know, killing humans, taking over their bodies or whatever it may be. The 3 of them are very, very similar, you know, and that's what I'm said earlier there as well. The Thing, even though it was a remake and it was based on a book that came out back in the 1950s or whatever it may be, The Thing to me is it's a similar vein of Alien. You know, these group of people trapped in this place, can't go outside, you know what I mean? They don't know where the thing is, they don't know where it's going to pop up next. People start disappearing. Do you know, that's what I'm trying to say as well, and it's all very dark and claustrophobic, and, you know, instead of the vacuum of space, you have the vast we're out in the snow, you know, you've got
you can't go anywhere, it's Antarctica.
The harsh elements. You have the harsh winter elements instead, and that's what I'm trying to say. I'm not taking anything away from The Thing or anything like that, and I think maybe that's why, in my mind, you know, it's a great film, but I think that's why in my mind I can't really put it too much up on a pedestal.
No,
does that make sense?
No, I agree. Listen, I mean, you know, I treasure the film, but I respect your opinion as always. So, you know, I get that. I go back and forth on them all. I go back and forth. So it's tough. It's definitely tough. It's really when you watch them. Like when you watch a certain movie, it just shoots up your list because you're like, wow, I love that. And then you can watch a different one and be like, that's why I've never made a real top 10 all time. It's very hard to like really knock down because like you'll watch a movie and be like, no, this needs to go up higher. And then it's just fluctuating. The only one that never changes is my 1-2, and the rest kind of go back and forth on the list. So
how I actually do that is the films of my top 10 are movies that I can return to again and again and enjoy them. Yeah, that they're the ones. It's not kind of like I'm putting it in there because it's a great film and I'm being pretentious about it. You know what I mean? That's kind of the way I do it.
Yeah, my top 10 list won't look like that where I'll put like a movie like, oh, you know, yeah, like I can watch a movie once and be like, I love that movie, I appreciate that movie, but I'm not coming back to that movie. You know, like there's some movies you're just one and done with, whereas like certain movies, like, you know, like Batman 89, that the reason why that would always make my top 5 is because I could watch Batman 89 every week. And still love it. So same thing with Terminator. I could just, that's what, and like Pulp Fiction, like I can just rewatch those movies whenever. But I think that's going to do it here for us on our Alien podcast. We hope you guys all enjoyed it. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to share this video. And then after you're done doing all that, tell your friends about us, and we will be seeing you around.